Hey, this is Jim Forsyth here with Citizens for Sound Money, and I'm honored to have the directors of Atlas Vaults and Holdings. You guys can explain more, Carlos and Alejandro, definitely welcome. And if you guys want to introduce yourselves, maybe a little personal background, and kind of, especially if anything that relates to Sound Money.
Yeah, I'm Alex Alejandro Kapanakis. This is Carlos Lau, and he runs the daily operation of the business here at Atlas Vault. I'm the CEO of Atlas Vault, and what we have created here is basically we've created a group of business to protect for the sole purpose of finding a way to protect one's wealth from the banking and political system that's constantly trying to erode your value. So what we've created here is a private bank alternative to a bank, where you can bring your wealth, your precious metals, keep it in a private place where no one gets access to it. It's your own. It's no one can touch it. And we created a separate business outside of Panama, which is called Atlas Broker SAC, which is in Peru, which is a mining country, and that's for the purposes of purchasing gold and silver. And then we have just burgeoned off and broadened into the area of cryptocurrency and all of the blockchain technology with our company Sanctorum, which is in Costa Rica. And we created it for the purpose of being independent and free of the centralized controls that seems to be growing every day in this world. So the idea that we have is to decentralize completely, and which is why we have in 3 different country jurisdictions our operations. We have the stability of Panama, which is a very politically stable country in Latin America, for the storage of one's personal wealth and one's items of importance. And that's because Panama has a very good stable system for security in this part of the world. The reason we went to Peru for the purposes of buying and selling precious metals is because the Peruvian government and economic system is geared to the mining and precious metals world of operation. And so it's much more secure to do business with a country that has a banking system and has a mineral system that's accustomed to that kind of world. It's amazing just how negative many different places are to the buying and selling of gold and silver, but Peru is very friendly to that. Costa Rica is a very free country for purposes of cryptocurrency. By way of example, very much today, Panama has just instituted a law before the business even grows, before there's even a cryptocurrency business, basically killing cryptocurrency, where they're going to tax it by as much as 20%, and they will regulate it pretty much out of existence. But they're just announced that they're going to implement that law here. We knew that was going to be the case, so we decided it wasn't the freest place in the world to have that. So every country has a reason and has a different benefit and a different aspect that's very negative to certain things. So that's why we developed the way we did.
It's interesting. Yeah, and Carlos, anything from you for your personal background, or?
Well, I'm in the business since 2008 in the vault safety deposit boxes, and we have here in Panama the biggest vault in Central and South America, waiting for 5 type of sizes to all of our customer and their privacies. Okay.
That's great. And Alejandro, when we were talking before, your background, something makes you really value
Well, like I'm an American, but I was born in Cuba of Cuban Greek parents, and one of the things that was instilled in me, ingrained in me, was the hatred, more or less, and dislike of the communist system and any collectivist government that seems to be developing. And I don't know. I was telling you off camera. I just don't know why this kind of disease in political collectivism is growing in the United States and even and in Europe the way it has. But that's a major concern. And I think what we all have to do right now is not just learn how to deal with the economic issues. I think the biggest issue right now is you can be the smartest guy in the world with your money and your investments. If you don't think of what's happening politically, you will lose everything. You know, one of the issues that I know that you and people like Ron Paul have dealt with is the issues of what happens when the federal system, when the Federal Reserve destroys the currency. Well, it happened in Germany, and many of those arguments are if you had been smart and you had developed the right kind of investment strategy in Germany when they were destroying the mark, you would have been able to buy an entire block in Germany. The problem with that, and I agree with it, but the problem with that is it fails to take into consideration the political aspect. Because if you had bought the block in Germany and you weren't aware that within 5 years you would have Adolf Hitler with the Nazis, and they would have taken pretty much everything you bought. So you always have to think of where the political dynamism is going, and where these basically miscreants of power are coming from, and that's something that we cannot ignore anymore. You know,
I made that point on Twitter recently. Is we're starting to see inflation, and the people that are in this sector that see it coming have a responsibility to go talk to other people, because you're right. If you just protect yourself and everything else falls apart, it's not going to be a good place afterwards. Whereas if you can spread the word and get as many people kind of into the lifeboat as possible, then we can come out the other side a lot better.
The issue in America is why do Americans feel that they have to keep everything they have, all their things of value, in one place? You should always think as if you were in Nazi Germany, pre-Nazi Germany, and think, what would happen if a political power said, I'm taking everything you have? What would happen? You need to think about that. And yes, not everybody can do that, but everybody can take some steps. And this is why governments hate the concept of cryptocurrency so much now. It's quite obvious that they can't stand the fact that there's an escape route. And if there's an escape route and they can't take something from you, they're gonna get violent. They're going to come with their weapons, and they're going to take things from you. That's what you have to be prepared for.
Yeah, or come take stuff that's easily takeable. Your money in the bank, assets in the bank. Maybe you own a big ETF, silver ETF, and that whole thing gets taken.
I'm going to tell you something. I lived through a period when I was in Greece, when in 2009 and 10, when all of a sudden the banks closed. And in Cyprus, everybody woke up one day and they had 60% less in their bank account. Mm-hmm. It's called a bail-in. And I was on the Greek island when because trying to take care of my father's funeral arrangements, and there were points in time where I couldn't take money out of a bank machine because they no longer let you have money. They restricted the amount of money you can have every week from your own bank account. Now, this is something Americans don't understand. This is coming. The American law says they can do it. There are emergency provisions in the law in the United States that says banks can take whatever they want, and you're not even the owner of your bank account. And people don't understand that.
Yeah.
They need to understand that once and for all, because bail-ins are a real problem. And it wasn't just something that happened in Greece and Cyprus. It was an experiment to see how many people would let it happen. And unfortunately, the experiment went well. People allowed it. There wasn't rioting in the streets.
Well, even in the US, there's a precedent. I mean, FDR confiscated gold. At the time, the dollar was backed by gold, so people didn't really think of it as confiscation. They handed it in, they got the paper back for it.
Yeah.
But then he revalued it to $35 from $20 to $35 overnight. So very, very similar kind of precedent.
Absolutely right. And they're already, you don't even have to get that far. We have Janet Yellen right now saying that she wants to tax unrealized gains, and the Democrats are very much in favor of it. It's crazy. And you know, when people say unrealized gains, well, what does that mean? Well, unfortunately, most people don't understand that even their house is an unrealized gain. And that's what they're doing. They're doing two things right now. They're going after all of your possible wealth, which is the unrealized portion, and they want to make sure they control even your bank account with this $600 minimum of reporting to the IRS. All of that is part of this, is part of a multifaceted attempt to control every aspect of what you have in the bank and every aspect of what you spend. The Europeans do it now. Europeans are terrified of making payments to themselves because they're afraid of what the government will do. You know, you can make a $500 payment to somebody for working on your in your garden or working on your house, and they are scared of having to get paid because they have to justify everything they get. That's Europe, and that's where we're heading for in the United States. And that's one reason why I think we needed to create an alternative, a way to save money outside of the banking system. Gold and silver is a way to save money. Gold and silver is savings. That's real savings. When you save money in the bank, first, you don't own it. It's not yours. Second, that money is evaporating by the day. It's evaporating, and people don't understand it. I still hear people, they go to the shops, they go to stores, and they get angry. They call people asses, and they say, you know, how dare you? You're a criminal. You're a crook. And the fact is, they don't realize that the most brilliant theft in the world was created when they made the Federal Reserve, because they don't realize. And I know I'm talking to one of the guys that's part of that. You're part of the Ron Paul brigade here. They don't understand because they don't get taught this in school, that their money is being stolen from them every day by the bankers and by the federal government. And they don't care. They don't understand it. They want to blame the guy who sells them a hamburger for being too expensive, but they don't realize that it's their money that's doing it. Instead of saying, look, we can't control that. We don't have the guns to stop that. We don't have the power to stop that. The government will do what it wants. But what we can do is we can save our money in things that can't be destroyed. That's what we can do. And we should save it in places that are safe and secure. And sometimes outside of the areas like the legal system, like the US, you know, one of the things that Americans need to worry about, you can save all your money. You can be very prudent and not go out and spend your money like a madman and put it all away. And then one day, you know, in your business or in your private life, somebody sues you because a lawyer gets paid 40% of what he gets after he wins in a case, and they destroy you legally. That's something that Americans need to think about. Protect yourself. Doctors have had to do it. Doctors can't even practice medicine anymore because they get sued and they lose everything. So right now, and I can tell you, doctors make you sign a paper saying, I don't have insurance. If you want to sue me, go ahead. And they keep everything else in other people's names because it's become so bad. Because we created a system that rewards bottom-feeding lawyers that make 40% of everything they recover. And that's a problem that we have to go through. And people need to consider all of those things, especially when they start gaining some form of wealth in their lives. In one moment, you can lose it all because they take it from you, because some guy served you with papers to sue you.
Yeah.
That's reality.
Yeah, so you mentioned unreal tax on unrealized gains. The crazy thing is, those unrealized gains might not even be gains, right? With inflation the way it is, it might just hold its purchasing power, but then they get to tax it.
But
Either
it's a
realized
gain.
gains or unrealized
It,
gains.
it's a gain to the government and to their record keeping. But really, no matter how much they tax you, and I know you can back me up on this. No matter if they tax you every single dollar that you have, if they taxed every billionaire that exists in the United States, every single dollar he's got, they still don't even come close, not a fraction of what they spend. They don't come close to it. The system is meant to cave. It's a system that cannot be open, cannot be paid. So really what they're doing is not to pay down the debt, because that's not their interest. What they're trying to do is to take your money and control you and stop you from acting on your own freedom-based activity so that they can tell you what to do. Because the people in power continue to have the wealth, and there will continue. What we've been seeing in the last 5 years has been a total wealth redistribution, free money to the giant corporations so they can rebuy their stocks, and nothing is being left to the middle class. They are destroying the middle class so that they can continue to control politically everything they want. That's what's going on.
Yeah, and I was setting up a business and asked about business loan rates, and they're from 9 to 18%. So the big guys can borrow at 0%, but if you want to start a small business or your credit cards, you're paying 9, 12, 18%. And that just shows, that's why the wealth imbalance has gotten so absolutely big.
It's intentional.
It's the Cantillon effect. They're getting the free money and we aren't, and we're paying high rates.
It's intentional. You've got BlackRock. You got an example. BlackRock buying up properties, houses. You've got to. They're buying up properties so that they can. Again, they're not making a secret of this. If you go back to the world to what is the what's his name, the German who says you'll have nothing, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Klaus Schwab.
If you go back to that. That website tells you exactly what they want to do. And they're doing it. You've got Build Back Better. They're going now and saying we are taking property. Now, what are they going to do with all those houses? They're going to rent them back to the people, and government taxes will pay for this. But again, when they get to a certain level where over 60% of the population doesn't pay the taxes, they get to do whatever they want, and that's what's scary. That's very frightening. And it's something that if you're in a business, you're trying to keep your family afloat, you can't just worry about where you're going to save money and what you're going to invest in. You have to think about what's going on politically as well.
Yeah, that's great. So talk to me about the mechanics of your businesses that you're involved in.
Well, when we first created the business, we created it essentially first as the vault, and we created it so that we can have a private area so you can save your wealth in other forms other than cash, because cash again evaporates. So if you wanted to save your gold and silver privately, this is what Atlas Vault was created to do. Again, when we started, the idea was to create an environment that would be decentralized, so that we wouldn't worry about whether or not a bank approves of you, whether or not you've got you can have the freedom of having nobody looking over your shoulder. The next question would be freedom of movement of that wealth. How do you spend your wealth? And that's when we became connected with Kinesis and ABX. And Kinesis was an opportunity because they presented themselves with a force of power that they have created already, and as they like to call it, the ecosystem that exists. And we wanted to become a part of an ecosystem that could end up supporting each other, because what I think we need to do to create an alternative to this collectivism that's going on around the world is to create a network of support. And when when the opportunity came to organize with Kinesis, it was very exciting because we have the support, we have the place where we can store. We also work with each other in buying and selling the precious metals. But what we needed to give our clients the opportunity to do is to create a way to liquefy their assets so that they can then spend it. Because if you know anything, once you try to create anything that's an alternative to the dollar, you hit nothing but brick walls. And what Kinesis has offered with us is a support basis where they now, through them, we now have the ability to create, to digitize our gold that people have, and convert it into debits that can be used in their credit, in a Visa or credit card basis. So they get to spend, and that's the freedom that we were missing. We were missing the ability, because obviously gold and silver is heavy and bulky and very hard to change. It's hard to exchange. But once we create the network, which is the last part of the equation, we created that alternative that people need. Because what we now have, not only do we have that, but we have a network of people. So if we say, now because of our network, we can say, look, we have one client who wants to sell, we have another client in the networks that wants to buy, and that becomes freedom. Plus the fact that they can convert whatever they have into, like you were saying, we were talking about, if you have $1,000 in gold and that gold goes up another $1,000, you have the freedom now to say, I want to take the $1,000 increase and put it into a credit card and then spend it. That's now possible to do. And that's what excites us about this, because we now have a network of people and like-minded forces that can help each other find that freedom alternative.
I would think the partnership also allows you to reach people of lesser means than you normally could. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, being able to afford a deposit box with you versus, you know, you could put $10 a week into Kinesis, right?
It's, I'm glad you say that, because there's also a great opportunity to buy into silver and let the silver grow, because silver is one of the most incredible bargains I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper. Right? Silver's cheaper than it is to get out of the ground right now. It's almost, if you calculated all the cost of marketing silver, it is actually cheaper. And it's amazing that it's doing so poorly in the sense that nobody's excited about silver yet. But you don't have to be a millionaire to start buying silver, and you can put it together and just let it grow in value. And I believe that gold is going to be for the heavy amounts of money, and silver will be for the day, more of the daily and monthly spending of money.
Right.
And I think that people need to prepare for both, because look, there are many people that believe, and I'm one of those people that agree with it, that the system can collapse very easily. Yes. And if the system collapses, we will have to have alternatives to be able to spend, because you can't just count on the dollar or the euro, and you really can't just count on Bitcoin, because anything could happen to Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is going to be the focus of a lot of banking and governmental entities attacks, and people need to think of alternatives. And I am a huge believer in the blockchain, and the blockchain is one of the best things that's ever been developed. But before that gets because of what's going on with Bitcoin, I believe much more in what we have now by having one-to-one backing of the blockchain with gold and silver, because now you know that you have something that's tangible, and whatever happens in the market, you always have one-to-one on guarantee that this is there. It's never going to disappear. It's not going to evaporate. Bitcoin can evaporate.
Yeah.
That's You know, whether you believe it or not, I know there's some people who think of it as a religion now, but it can't evaporate. And I love Bitcoin, but it's not going to be there's no guarantees to that. I still believe gold has been around for 5,000 years. It's not going anywhere. Silver's been around. Silver's in the Bible. You know, I was telling these guys yesterday. Do you understand what the 33 pieces of silver were in the Bible when they talk about Judas and how he got paid? Do you understand that when he got paid 33 pieces of silver, he was getting paid enough to buy a piece of land?
Yeah.
That's what that meant. That it wasn't just like some coins that were thrown out. That people don't understand that was a lot of money. And so people need to remember that when the systems collapse and the paper is no longer worth anything, gold and silver is still going to be around.
Yeah. I mean, I have similar thoughts on Bitcoin. I mean, what was invented was absolutely stunning. You know, a way around the banking system, but I agree that there's risk, and I always counsel people, you know, get some diversity, you know, get some gold and silver. You know, Bitcoin's done well. You know, gold and silver, I think, have struggled because of the futures market and the highly leveraged nature of it, the volatility that it creates. Bitcoin has been great because it's kind of been the canary in the coal mine, you know, something that doesn't have that, you know,
Yeah.
holding it back. And so we see people fleeing the dollar in the rise of Bitcoin and Ethereum. But I do agree with you. I think, you know, gold and silver are time tested, and you know, people trying to get out of other currencies should have some gold and silver, both physical in your possession, and then something like vaulted or, you know, through Kinesis for you know, day-to-day spending.
That's what excites me about what we're doing with Kinesis is that you can have the benefit of the blockchain, but you also know that if you come to the vault, you get your gold, you get your silver. And you know, we're here. We're in Panama. Our building is visible, very easily found. You come in and you pick it up based on the minimum amount, of course, but you have it. It's there. There's no way around that. If you can't say that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a great idea, and especially if you got in early. I mean, I think people are going to be surprised at what can happen with the Bitcoin. I agree with you completely. It is a canary in the coal mine, and it is a measure of how bad the dollar is doing. It's real. You know, we have all the false news that's going on about how great the dollar is, how strong it is, but Bitcoin going at 65,000 is really a testament as to how sick the dollar is. That's what that really is.
Yeah, and how people are looking for an alternative.
Yeah, and you're right. The reason gold and silver are not like Bitcoin right now is because gold and silver have a lot of are being played with in the markets, and they would love to do that with Bitcoin, but they can't yet.
Yeah, big smash this morning on silver at about 10 o'clock Eastern time. And yeah, it's like, who just suddenly sells, you know, millions of dollars worth of silver and doesn't care what the price is? They don't do a limit order. They just, you know, sell as fast as possible.
It's not even being done in a fancy way anymore. It's quite obvious what they're doing with the market.
Yeah.
Probably at some point the shorting of the market will become impossible. I don't know what that point is yet, but they won't be able to short it without losing their shirts.
Yeah. So we talked about the company, about the partnership with Kinesis. What are you guys' plans, you know, kind of future plans involving Kinesis, or your future plans? You know, what kind of outreach are you going to try to do in South America
we hope to be able to tap the entire South American market. There are many countries in South America that need an alternative. Argentina and Chile. These are countries that are dealing with everyday insanity. You know, Chile was doing really great for a while, and then the Argentinian political powers went straight in like a virus and began to infect it. But Argentina is a country that every 2-3 years has a major problem. their banking system collapses every so often. South America, Colombia is possibly, I mean, they look stable, but their central banks are creating an inflation that would be considered hyperinflation. Not yet, but it's close to it. I mean, you got you know,
Yeah.
people are millionaires and they have no money. You know, that's I'd say that was close to inflation. But you know, all of South America has a need, and what we wanted to do, because we're aligning with Kinesis, we can reach those people without their even having to come to Panama, without their even having to go to Peru. So it gives them all access. And as you said earlier, we can reach the smaller people too, the people that want to spend just a few dollars and save, because this is a savings way. This is a way to save money. And there is no other way to call it. If you're saving gold and silver, you're just converting your dollars into a real savings asset that you can then hold on to and spend when you want. Because we're now with Kinesis, then the spending is easier. And that's why we're excited about that. But our plan is to go into every country in South America, get to Mexico, to Central America. Mexico has a great need for this. Mexico needs to have an alternative to what their governments are doing. And essentially, we're doing it all legally. All we're doing is offering them a way to convert their money into savings assets, and then turn that savings assets into something they can spend. That's all we offer. It's very simple. And I think Kinesis is extremely simple. Complicated in the execution, but it's very simple in the concept, which is, I think, the best way to deal with this.
Well,
Essentially, what I think we're trying to do is to go back to the period of time when like the Medici, when the Medici had issued a certificate and they had actual gold to back it up before they got corrupted. That was the system. And you knew that when you had that IOU for, let's say, an ounce of gold, you had an ounce of gold that had to be waiting for you. That's what we need to come back to. It's simplicity in its finest form, but it's a necessity.
Yeah, you know, that was working. There was multiple banks. You could deposit your gold, get a certificate. And, you know, even the US prior to the Federal Reserve, in competition amongst the banks, you know, sometimes they, you know, one of the banks might go bankrupt, but the competition kept people relatively honest. And then the Federal Reserve comes in, backstops every bank, you know, and then the fractional reserve blows out, you know, then we totally get disconnected from gold over the centuries. So,
do you know why we're named Atlas?
no, I don't.
It's not because of Greek mythology. We're named Atlas because of Atlas Shrugged.
Okay, that's what I would have guessed. Yeah,
Yeah.
Especially with the icon that you have on there.
Yeah, and there's even a quotation from that in the page, at the beginning of the page. If you know that, and you know Atlas Shrugged, you know what our philosophy is.
No, definitely. Something I want to highlight of what you said is you were talking about building a network of support. And this is something in our community we have a lot of. It can be very frustrating because you have a lot of people saying, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. You know, the mentality is, you know, I don't trust anyone. I'm going to stack all my gold and silver at home. I don't trust anybody. That's not going to work. That's not going to get us a better society. You have to build a circle of trust, figure out, you know, build partnerships. So I was happy to hear you talk about that, about building that network of support, because that becomes, you know, far more powerful than just people stacking at home. So,
well, that's the way Kinesis management feels with us. They, you know, they feel that we're part of a network, and it's amazing because initially, you know, we could technically be in competition, but that's not how they feel, and that's not how we feel. We're not competing because we're trying to find and build an alternative. Alone, we're weak. Together, we're very strong. And that's what most people don't want to understand. Those same gold and silver bugs that want to hold it, they are holding it, because the system we've created and Kinesis has created, it's real, it's there. And if they don't want to trust it, well, they can come and verify it.
Yeah.
They're
Or
welcome to come and verify it. It's there. And they can take it. They don't even have to come for it. They can make a claim for it. They can say, I want my gold. And all they have to do is pay for the shipping and they get it. That's
yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, we've redeemed for another business I'm involved in. We've redeemed 7,000-ounce bars. But yeah, you file your redemption request, and the response back is, "Where do you want us to send it to?" And this is your
Yeah.
shipping cost.
Yeah.
They really do welcome the redemptions versus, it actually makes sense because if there's a lot of redemptions, holders yield goes up because there's less being held.
Mhm.
And that you were talking about saving, and that's something I don't think people understand how big of a deal it is to get a holder's yield on something like gold and silver.
Wonderful.
And to do it without having any debt, that instead it's based off of use of the monetary system that pays the users. So
I think that's one of the most brilliant aspects of Kinesis. I really think that when they came up with that, I have to congratulate them on that. It's one of the complaints that everybody's always had about gold and silver. It doesn't provide a yield, doesn't provide a dividend. Well, you're right, but it saves you from losing. But here, because of what they have with the fee sharing, that's the equivalent of a yield. And I think that's a brilliant idea. And I think it's wonderful. And
yeah,
we're going to participate in it too.
yeah, I was looking at getting a traditional bank account, money market 0.1% or less. Well, the silver yield annualized was 0.2% to 0.4%, and gold this last month was close to 1%. So to get a yield that's better than a money market, but in gold and silver is pretty phenomenal.
I saw a video of one of the people that of similar minds. I can't remember who did it. You may have seen it as well. This guy was standing on a corner in, I think it was New York City, holding a bar of chocolate and
Oh, yeah.
a coin of silver, and he was offering one or the other, and nobody took the silver. They took the chocolate. And
Yeah.
it's because it's the way they've been taught.
Yeah, well, there's another person that did a study on that, and I think it might have been Mike Maloney, I think, in his documentary about Sound Money, is you show a picture of like monopoly money, the US dollar, and a gold coin, say which one's not like the others. The adults will say the dollar because it's got value, it's money. The kids will pick out the gold coin every time. And I think it's the same thing. Well, with a candy bar and it's silver, it might be tough for a kid, but the kids seem to realize the value when you put that in their hands.
Yeah, but you see, this is something that slowly they're going to realize, because it happens every time when the fiat currency begins to collapse and people have problems even getting their food. They're going to think back, and what we need to be able to do is as a network as a community, teach more people that your savings isn't in paper. I have another example. I was in England and 1 year, and I kept about $200 worth of English pounds in my suitcase or my travel bag. And 2 years later, I went back, and I thought, I don't need to use to get any money out of the bank. I have the money. When I went to pay a taxi, he wouldn't take the money. And the reason he wouldn't take the money is because they discontinued it. Now, why do they do that? So that you can't save. They want to make sure you keep your money in the bank so that they can take it, and that money isn't useful. So you can't put it in a mattress, because by the time you open it up, that money is no longer in circulation. But gold and silver cannot be taken out of circulation. This is what's great. And people need to remember that all the time. It never goes out of circulation. The English pound, for me to get that money back, I had to go to a bank in England and present the pound, show them my passport so that I can get the equivalent. Now, why would that be necessary if it isn't for control?
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about before we wrap up?
Well, I think what we would like to do is that we invite a community to become part of their community. We want you to become part of our community. We want to grow in strength with all of us together. And one of the things that, one of the ways that I think is the best way to take care of concerns, look us up, come and see us, come inspect whatever you want to inspect. If you're able to come to Panama, we'd love to show you around. It's something that we welcome. We have 7 days a week or 6 days a week. 6 days a week. He runs it daily. So that's we want to be available, and we are available to our clients all the time. And one of the things that what I'd love to have everyone remember is when this is done, when we get, our next step is to create a much stronger community through Kinesis, through you, other people, that we will be stronger because we need alternatives to what's being done to us. We need legal alternatives, obviously. We don't want to go against any established law, but we need to be alternatively separate from what's being done, because otherwise we're just victims, and we have to become better than the victims.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Citizens for Sound Money is trying to do, is to create that network, to enlarge the network, to educate people and to get people. There's a lot of organizations that are pushing for, the US dollar being sound money backed by gold or something like that. Our whole approach is, no, you can do this right now. You need to start using sound money right now in your life. And yeah, we're eager, we're based in the US, but we're eager to, help everybody worldwide, because it's a
We support your attempts. We support your organization. You want to know one last aspect? If people were going to try to do sound money, and if people would be more akin to what's going on with what we're doing with Kinesis in South America, in Mexico, there might not be 1 million people trying to go into the border across the border illegally.
That's excellent. That's an excellent point. Well, yeah, and I got this discussion with Moises. He was talking about all the inflation, and I said, "Yeah, sorry, we exported our inflation to you." And he laughed. He said, "Don't worry, it's coming back."
I have met people who are in power here in Panama who looked at me straight in the face and said, the only reason we have survived this last 2 years of the pandemic is because we used the dollar. And I just looked at him. I said, there's nothing I can argue with you on this. So you're gone. You're beyond comprehension to me. Because if you think that the dollar has helped you, and you don't understand that with your salary, your normal everyday salary, you can't even afford to go to a restaurant anymore because the dollar has the same. It's more expensive in Panama than it is in Miami, but the salaries are 1/3 of what they are in Miami, 1/3, maybe even less. But it doesn't compute, because everything that they do, what the central bank does, the Federal Reserve does in New York, is first felt in places like this, in Panama, in South America, in Europe, because the creator doesn't get to feel the tremor first. So you're right. You're right.
Yeah. So is there something you guys would like to say in Spanish to people of South America?
Yes, thank you, Jim. Well, I think the intangible asset that we have is the confidence of our customer. I would say it in Spanish. Toda la confianza que tienen nuestros clientes alrededor de todo Centroamérica, México, Guatemala, la confianza que ellos han creado con más de 15 años en confianza a todo el grupo Atlas, es lo que tenemos listo. Una comunidad lista con Kinesis para poder unirnos a una comunidad digital que les va a dar la independencia total que estamos buscando. Chile, Perú, Argentina, Brasil, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador. Ustedes saben todos nuestros clientes que nos han confiado por muchos años sus valores. Estamos aquí listos ya con esta unión que ha sido una realidad y listos para que ustedes puedan seguir el siguiente nivel.
I would just add that we invite the American citizens as well to come and visit us and look at look at what we have in Panama as an alternative. Also, there's a benefit that exists between the two countries. There's a treaty that allows an American, if you buy gold from an American supplier, you don't pay taxes. So according to the treaty, Panama does not charge you taxes on the purchase of gold and silver that's made in America. So that's something to always remember.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I actually was contacted on Twitter by somebody who was moving to Panama. He was interested in getting involved with Kinesis, but he was in Canada and was worried about redemption. And then 3 days later, your announcement comes out. So he was excited that he has an avenue now where he can save his money there. And when he moves there, if he wants to take possession of some, he can do it.
I would be worried if I were in Canada. So Canada has been a real surprise.
Yeah, I get
But
nervous.
it's great.
Yeah, I get nervous when the central bank doesn't have any gold. For sure.
Yeah, I think you guys, and you're right. You're right. And I hope that this is a beginning of a good friendship with your organization, and we support you.
It definitely, and likewise back, we support what you guys are doing there. We're eager to get involved in South America. We have a friend who's been trying to make inroads into Venezuela to help, get some supply chains using Kinesis going so that people can be fed. So, and we're eager to help with
Well,
that.
you heard that you heard Venezuelans are now forced to take little pieces of gold in exchange for food, that they're actually bartering,
Right.
like in the old West.
Right.
So
But
this is what happens with central government.
definitely.
Systems collapse. We need to be prepared for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do, to help people get prepared. Well, I definitely appreciate you guys' time. We'll wrap it up here.